A 67-year-old man came to me last year. No smoking, no family history of heart disease. He ate what he thought was healthy food every single day, but his arteries looked like those of a man 20 years older. Inflamed, stiff, worn down in a way I usually see in people who spent decades making very different choices. We talked for a long time, and the pattern we found was not in his genes. It was not his stress levels. It was not his weight. It was in how he reheated his dinner every single night. If this is the kind of honest, life-saving information you need, please subscribe to this channel right now, hit the like button, and share this with someone you love. Drop your location in the comments below so we know where our viewers are watching from. Your support means everything and helps this reach more people who need it. I am Dr. Andre Moss. I am a cardiothoracic surgeon, and I have spent over 30 years operating on hearts. What I am about to share, most doctors will not bring up at your annual checkup, but after 60, it matters more than you think. There are 5 common foods that become genuinely dangerous when reheated. Not just hard on digestion, dangerous. They trigger a chain reaction inside your body that quietly damages your arteries and raises your risk of serious illness at the same time. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you will never look at your leftovers the same way again. Here is what I want you to understand before we get into the 5 foods. When you were in your 30s or 40s, your body had a remarkable ability to neutralize damage. Free radicals, low-grade toxins, minor inflammation. Your cells handled it quietly and efficiently. You did not feel it. You did not need to think about it. After 60, that system slows down. Your liver processes toxins more slowly. Your immune response becomes less precise. Your arterial walls get thinner and less elastic. And your DNA repair mechanisms become less reliable. Does that mean you are fragile? Absolutely not. But the margin for error gets smaller. Things harmless at 40 are not harmless at 65. This is where inflammation comes in. Inflammation is not your enemy. In the short term, it is how your body heals. You cut your finger. Inflammation cleans the wound. You catch a virus. Inflammation fights it off. That is normal. That is healthy. The problem is chronic inflammation. Low-level, slow-burning, constant inflammation that never fully switches off. Chronic inflammation does not just attack one system. It damages your arteries and creates an environment where abnormal cell growth becomes more likely. I have seen both outcomes on the operating table more often than I would like to count. The 5 foods we will discuss all share one thing in common. When reheated, they produce compounds your body struggles to neutralize after 60. And day after day, meal after meal, those compounds add up. Let us start with the one that is probably in your kitchen right now: fried food. French fries, fried chicken, anything cooked in vegetable oil, sunflower, corn, soybean. You probably know this is not health food, but here is what you likely do not know. The danger is not in eating it the first time. The danger is in reheating it. When you heat vegetable oils again the next day, they go through a chemical breakdown. The oil oxidizes, and in that process, releases compounds called aldehydes, the same compounds found in cigarette smoke. I am not being dramatic. That is the chemistry. So, what do aldehydes do inside your body? First, they go after your arterial walls. They trigger oxidative stress. Oxidative stress damages the cells lining your blood vessels. Over time, inflammation sets in. The walls thicken, stiffen, and lose elasticity. For someone over 60 whose arteries are already less elastic, this is a serious problem and one of the fastest routes to high blood pressure. But that is only half the story. Aldehydes are also free radicals, and free radicals do something particularly alarming. They damage DNA. They attack the genetic material inside your cells. Most of the time, your body repairs that damage. But after 60, repair slows down. Some mutations slip through, and when enough mutations accumulate in the wrong place, that is how serious cellular illness begins. Do you have to stop eating fried food forever? No, but reheating it, especially in the microwave or with more oil, is where the damage multiplies. If you have leftover fried food, use an oven or air fryer at moderate temperature with no added oil. Or better yet, eat it cold. Now, this next one shocks people every time, because leafy greens are supposed to be the healthiest foods you can eat. Spinach, kale, Swiss chard, and they are healthy when prepared correctly. The problem starts after cooking. Raw spinach and kale contain nitrates, naturally occurring compounds that are largely harmless in their original form. Your body processes them without much trouble. But here is what happens when you cook leafy greens and let them sit. Bacteria begin converting those nitrates into nitrites. That conversion happens at room temperature, and it accelerates when greens are stored improperly. So far, still manageable. The real problem comes when you reheat them. Heat causes nitrites to react with proteins in the food, producing nitrosamines. Nitrosamines are classified as probable human carcinogens by the World Health Organization, linked to stomach, esophageal, and colon cancers. But cancer risk is not the only issue. Nitrosamines also trigger vascular inflammation, damaging the endothelium, the lining of your blood vessels. When the endothelium is inflamed, arteries lose their ability to regulate blood flow. Blood pressure becomes harder to control, and clot risk goes up. For someone over 60, cancer risk plus cardiovascular inflammation at the same time is a genuine concern. The frustrating part is that you are trying to do the right thing. You cook spinach because it is nutritious. You are just reheating leftovers because it is convenient. So here is the simple fix. Cook only as much leafy greens as you will eat in one sitting. Leftovers go cold into a salad. Never reheat them. And one more thing. Are you storing cooked greens at room temperature before the fridge? Even 1 hour accelerates the conversion most rapidly. Rice seems like the safest food in the world. Plain, simple, neutral. Billions of people eat it every day, and yet, reheated rice is responsible for more foodborne illness than almost any other staple food on the planet. Here is why. When you cook rice, you kill most bacteria. But one particular bacterium plays by very different rules. Its spores survive boiling. They go dormant in the heat. Then the rice cools down, and those spores wake up and multiply fast. You think, fine, I will reheat the rice thoroughly. That will kill the bacteria. And you are right. Reheating kills the bacteria, but it does not destroy the toxins they have already produced. Bacillus cereus releases heat-resistant toxins as it multiplies. You can heat that rice until it is steaming hot, and those toxins are still there, still active, still ready to cause damage. In the short term, nausea, vomiting, discomfort, unpleasant, but survivable. But here is what nobody talks about. Repeated exposure to these low-level toxins 2, 3, 4 times a week over months and years creates chronic intestinal inflammation. And chronic intestinal inflammation is not a local problem. It spreads. The gut and the heart are connected through multiple pathways. Inflammatory signals travel through the bloodstream. Changes in gut bacteria directly affect cholesterol metabolism and blood pressure regulation. I have had patients with unexplained cardiovascular inflammation, normal weight, non-smokers, reasonable diet, no obvious cause. And when we dug into their daily habits, one thing kept coming up. Reheated rice, every day, sometimes twice a day. After 60, your gut lining is thinner and more permeable. Toxins and inflammatory signals get through more easily. The barrier is simply not as strong. The fix is straightforward, but timing matters. Cool rice rapidly. Get it into the refrigerator within 1 hour of cooking. Store it no more than 24 hours. When you reheat, do it once and once only. Never reheat rice a second time. How long does your cooked rice usually sit before going in the fridge? 1 hour? 3 hours? Keep that number in mind. Chicken is one of the most popular proteins for people over 60. Lean, versatile, easy to cook in bulk, and use throughout the week. The problem is that chicken and microwave reheating are a genuinely dangerous combination, and most people have no idea why. Microwaves heat food by exciting water molecules, but not evenly. The waves penetrate food in irregular patterns. They create what food scientists call cold zones, areas inside the food that receive little or no heat during the reheating process. You cannot see them. The outside of your chicken looks perfectly hot. Steam is rising, but inside, those cold zones never reach a safe temperature. That is the temperature range where bacteria thrive. Salmonella, Campylobacter and Listeria are the main culprits in reheated chicken. Campylobacter can survive temperatures that kill most other pathogens, and Listeria is especially concerning for people over 60 whose immunity weakens with age. One episode of food poisoning. That is a bad day. Painful, exhausting, and your body recovers. The real danger is the pattern. Repeated low-level bacterial exposure means your body fights off just enough, but not enough to prevent systemic inflammation. Every time your immune system mobilizes to deal with bacterial toxins, it releases inflammatory cytokines into the bloodstream, small amounts each time. But if this happens regularly, those cytokines circulate continuously. And what does that do to your cardiovascular system? They damage arterial walls. They promote plaque formation. They make blood more prone to clotting. I see these results regularly in slow, progressive arterial damage. So, what do you do with leftover chicken? The microwave is your worst option. Use an oven with foil at moderate temperature, or eat it cold. If you must use the microwave, cut the chicken into small pieces first, and let it rest 2 full minutes after heating. Significantly safer. Potatoes might be the most misunderstood food on this list, because the danger is not just in reheating them. It is in what reheating does to 2 completely separate processes happening inside that potato at the same time. Let us start with acrylamide. When starchy foods are cooked at high temperatures, a chemical reaction occurs between sugars and an amino acid. The result is acrylamide. The International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies it as a probable human carcinogen linked to kidney and other cancers. Here's the critical part. The first time you cook a potato, acrylamide forms. When you reheat it, more forms on top of what is already there. You are compounding exposure with every reheating cycle. After 60, your body detoxifies acrylamide less efficiently. The same amount does more damage. That is the cancer side. Now, let us talk about the heart side. Fresh cooked potatoes that have been cooled contain something called resistant starch. Resistant starch acts like dietary fiber, feeding healthy gut bacteria and slowing the release of glucose into your bloodstream, so blood sugar rises gradually. When you reheat that potato, the resistant starch converts back into regular starch. Regular starch digests rapidly. Your blood sugar spikes. Your pancreas has to produce a surge of insulin to compensate. For someone over 60 with any insulin resistance, this is genuinely damaging. Sharp, repeated blood sugar fluctuations cause oxidative stress in your vessel walls. They accelerate arterial stiffening and contribute directly to cardiovascular disease. One reheated potato, triggering both a carcinogen exposure and a cardiovascular stress response at the same time. That is the silent double threat. The practical solution: eat potatoes cold when possible. Cold potato salad with olive oil and herbs keeps resistant starch intact and blood sugar stable. If you need them warm, cook fresh ones at low heat for a short time with no added oil. Simple, effective, and better for your arteries and your cells. I want to step back for a moment. We have been talking about 5 individual foods, but here is what I really want you to understand. What happens when these foods work together against you over months and years? This is something I see from a very particular vantage point. When you have spent decades in an operating room, you develop a different relationship with time. I see the end results of decisions people made years earlier. The patient on my table did not arrive there because of one bad meal. They arrived there because of a pattern, and chronic inflammation is that pattern. Every food we discuss today, reheated oils, nitrosamines, bacterial toxins, all feed the same underlying process: chronic, low-level, systemic inflammation. Here is what that looks like inside your body. Over time, your arterial walls develop microscopic damage. Your immune system sends inflammatory cells to repair that damage. Those cells accumulate. Plaque begins to form. The arteries narrow. Blood pressure rises. The heart has to work harder to push blood through vessels that are increasingly stiff. Meanwhile, your cells are under continuous oxidative stress. The more inflammation, the more mutations. And the more mutations, the higher the probability that one escapes detection and becomes something more serious. Heart disease and serious cellular illness are not separate problems with separate causes. In many cases, They share the same root: chronic inflammation. After 60, the timeline compresses. The body has less reserve. What took 20 years to develop at 40 might take 10 at 65. Does that sound alarming? It is meant to be honest, not frightening, because the body's capacity for recovery is genuinely remarkable. Inflammation is reversible. Arterial function can improve. These processes can be slowed, sometimes stopped, with consistent, simple changes. Let me make this as practical as possible, because information without action is just anxiety. Here are the 5 swaps: fried food, oven or air fryer, no added oil, or eat it cold. The goal is to stop further oxidation of oil that is already in the food. Leafy greens. Cook only what you will eat immediately. Leftovers go cold. Salads, grain bowls, refrigerated within 30 minutes of cooling. Rice. Cool it fast. Refrigerate within 1 hour. Use within 24 hours. Reheat once and once only. Better yet, cook smaller portions. Chicken. Ditch the microwave. Use the oven with foil at moderate temperature, or eat it cold. No cold zones, no bacterial risk. Potatoes. Embrace the cold potato. Cold potato salad dressed with olive oil and lemon is one of the smartest meals you can eat after 60. None of these changes require you to stop eating foods you enjoy. They just require you to think differently about timing and temperature. And these changes stack. Each swap reduces your inflammatory load a little. All 5 together reduce it significantly over weeks and months. That reduction shows up in ways you can actually feel: better energy, more stable blood pressure, improved digestion. Your kitchen habits after 60 are one of the most powerful tools you have for protecting your heart. That is what the evidence shows. I want to tell you something I do not say lightly. I have stood at an operating table with a person's chest open in front of me more times than I can count. And in those moments, when you are looking directly at someone's heart and working to repair damage that took decades to accumulate, you develop a very specific perspective on what matters. You stop being abstract about health. You stop talking about risk percentages, because you are not looking at a statistic. You are looking at a 68-year-old grandfather whose arteries are so inflamed, barely functional, rigid, and calcified, like garden hoses left in the sun for 20 years. And the question that never leaves you: how much of this was preventable? The honest answer, based on everything I have seen and everything the research tells us, is a significant portion of it, not all of it. Genetics matter. Age matters. There are factors outside anyone's control. I am not here to assign blame. But chronic inflammation is largely preventable. And chronic inflammation is at the root of a staggering proportion of the cardiovascular disease and cellular illness I have seen. What shocks me most? Not the obvious cases. It is the patients who did almost everything right: exercised, watched their weight, cooked at home, and still, their arteries showed signs of chronic inflammatory damage. The same patterns came up every time when we dug into their daily habits: reheated oils twice a day, spinach microwaved every morning, rice left on the counter overnight, chicken in the microwave 3 times a week without a second thought. None of these things feel dangerous. That is the entire problem. They feel like normal, sensible, even responsible behavior. But inside the body, after 60, these repeated chemical insults accumulate. The inflammation never fully resolves. The DNA repair system starts missing things. This is the conversation I wish I could have with every patient before they end up on my table, before the procedure, before all the options get smaller. You still have all your options. You are paying attention to your health and asking the right questions. The changes we have discussed today are 5 simple swaps in how you handle specific foods, within your reach, right now, today, with no prescription needed. The body you are living in after 60 has carried you a long way, and it has more capacity to heal than most people give it credit for. It needs you to stop adding fuel to a fire that is already burning quietly in the background. Reduce the inflammation, protect the arteries, give your cells a fighting chance. That is not medical poetry. That is what 30 years in the operating room teaches you. Which of these 5 foods surprised you most? Leave your answer in the comments below, and please drop your location so we know where our viewers are watching from. I genuinely want to know. If someone you care about is over 60 and reheating these foods, share this with them, not to alarm them, but to give them what you now have. If this was useful to you, please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more honest conversations about your health. Take care of your heart. Take care of yourselves. The kitchen is one of the most powerful places in your life. Now you know how to use it. Everything shared here is general information, not personal medical advice. Your situation is unique. Before making any changes, please talk to your own doctor.